All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Below the Belt Sports Countdown to Baseball. We're doing our National League preview today. We have a very special guest on. It is Ethan, better known as NY Sports Fan Kush. I've done a couple Knicks videos with him. We're switching it over to the baseball side right now. Ethan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Ready to talk baseball, I guess.
Absolutely. We're 1 week from opening day at the time of recording this, so we'll just dive right into it. National League East, that's where we'll start. Braves won the division last year. We saw them send two teams to the postseason last year, and one of them was the Miami Marlins with a minus 41 run differential. So I think there's a lot to unpack with this division. I've said in some of our other videos where I think this is probably the deepest division in baseball in terms of I think you'll have five competent teams. I think the Marlins will probably be the worst, even though as crazy as it sounds, that was a team that won a playoff series on the road last year. And that just shows you how crazy 2020 was. But I think top to bottom, all five of these teams will be at least respectable. So, Ethan, what are your thoughts on the East? Who do you see winning it? How do you see some of these teams shaking out here?
So, yeah, I agree that, there's five teams that, I guess, wouldn't be, shocking if they finished over 500. And it's pretty competitive. It's been competitive for the last few years. We've always gone into the last 3 or 4 years now saying any team could there's this, it's a 3-team race or a 4-team race going into the year, which I think most people would say it's kind of like that this year. I think the two most popular picks to win the NL East are the Braves, who've obviously won it the last few years. And then now the trendy pick, the Mets, given they traded for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, who's now hurt. And so now they have a really good lineup now. And obviously their pitching staff, when healthy, is really good. And their bullpen has a lot of upside. So I'm going to go with the Mets to win the NL East. I think that they're just a little bit, on paper at least, a little more talented than the Braves. A little more complete, in the sense of I think the Braves lineup. I think it's people have said in the past, but it's a little top heavy, and I think the Mets rotation is, when healthy, is better, and I think their bullpen's better. So I'm picking the Mets to win the East, and then I think the Nationals and Phillies, they'll probably finish 3 and 4th, and the Marlins will probably ultimately finish last.
It's funny. I feel like every year, at least for the past 5 years, I think honestly, since the Mets went to the World Series, it's been the Mets are good on paper. The Mets are good on paper. The Mets are good on paper. And then this year, the Mets are really good on paper. I feel like for the first time, I'm actually starting to kind of believe that sentiment. In the past years, we've just pointed to their rotation, and there's kind of been hopefuls in that lineup that you've been oh, Nimmo's going to show up, just in the past years. But now this year, I really think they have a solidified lineup. I still think it's going to be the Braves in that East, but I mean, the Mets are going to be right on their tail the whole season, if not above them. So, I mean, Mets are a good pick.
Yeah, I'm high on the Mets, but not as high as other people. I see a lot of people, especially on Yankee Twitter, that are very high on the Mets. I am high on the Mets. I think they're a top 5 team in baseball. Rob and I were doing our playoff predictions the other night. I have them winning the wild card game over the Padres and matching up with the Dodgers in the division series. The thing about the Mets to me is that I obviously love Jacob deGrom. I do. I think he's the best pitcher in baseball, bar none. I like Carrasco a lot, but that hamstring injury does scare me. I don't know what the timeline's like. He is older now. I don't think Stroman's all that good. I think as your 4 guy, he's good, but you're in a situation now where he's going to be their 2 to start the season. And then Noah Syndergaard is a guy who I think is parallel to Luis Severino in terms of timeline, where he could come back and be a top 10 pitcher in baseball. But at the same time, he's a guy coming off of Tommy John who's kind of a mixed bag a few seasons before, where we've seen him be dominant, seen him be injured, seen him be ineffective. So I think both those rotations have a lot of upside, both them and the Braves. The Braves, you look at Soroka working back from an injury, Morton in his late 30s. Fried was okay in 2019, really good in 2020. So how much stock do you put into it? I just give the Braves the edge just because they've done it the last few seasons. I've doubted them before. I picked the Phillies to win the division in 2019 over them, which was a brutally stupid pick. So I think they're very close on paper. I think it's going to come down to 1 or 2 games in the division. I think they're both going to win somewhere between 93, 96 games. I'll just go with the Braves just because we've seen them have that success over the last couple of years. And I think the Mets, as a newer team, a little bit younger, trying to compete, are going to have to figure it out a little bit as they go.
Ethan, I'm oh, sorry, you can go. I'll ask the question after.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can't blame you for saying the Braves. I just went with the Mets just because I think on paper they're a little better, and if they can stay healthy, I think that there will be a force to. I think on paper, and if they stay healthy, they're the second best team in the NL. So that's all I was gonna say.
When you look at the division, and I picked the Nationals to be like under their win total. I think, Nick, what were they at, like 82 and a half?
I think they were 84 and a half.
They're at 84 and a half. And I'm pretty low on them. But I'm curious if I'm one of the only people that is kind of on that mindset, because you got Scherzer, who's a year older, still a dominant pitcher, but I don't know if he's going to put up top 5 pitcher stats this year, just for the fact that he is a year older. He's like 36 now. Like, I mean, it's just tough for that consistency. Strasburg's coming off an injury where he was on the 60-day DL. It was like carpal tunnel in his wrist. And then Corbin had a bad year last year. I mean, can he bounce back? Absolutely. But I mean, what I didn't really expect him to have that bad of a year in the first place. So I'm kind of like, where did that come from? Has he figured it out? And then in that lineup, like, I love Soto, but like, where are they getting the rest of those runs from? So in terms of like consistently. So, I mean, I'm pretty low on them, but am I kind of one of the only people that thinks like that? I'm curious to know your thoughts.
I see where you're coming from, especially Strasburg. He's coming off the injury. I believe he's had some injury scares like in spring training, and like I've heard that like his velo is like down, so that's going to be interesting. And then also like outside of Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin, they don't have a ton of rotation depth. Like, they signed John Lester, who's not good anymore. He's their 4 starter. So like he's already as a 4 starter, but like you don't want, like, if Corbin or Strasburg gets hurt, which like obviously there's some concern with Strasburg, you don't want like Lester to have to be your 2 or 3 starter. And they're like 5th starter, I believe, is like Austin Voth, who's like not good, I don't think.
I know.
And they're both they signed Brad Hand, which I think will be a good addition, but their bullpen still has some question marks. In their lineup, I think some players are like underrated. Like, they have Carter Kieboom, who I think like could be like a breakout player this year. Signed Kyle Schwarber, but definitely still some holes, like a lot of holes.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Same question, Ethan, but the Phillies, because Rob and I have said before, the Phillies are kind of like a team that went all in and just did a horrible job at it. I mean, they threw money at Bryce Harper, which I don't think is a bad contract, but that's definitely a go-for-it kind of move. Same thing with Zach Wheeler. They trade Sixto Sanchez for JT Realmuto, which thank God they at least re-signed him. Otherwise, that would have looked like a brutal, brutal trade for them. Where do you see them going from here? Because I think they're another team that's going to win somewhere in the mid to low 80s in games. I mean, they did address the bullpen, which literally can't be worse than it was last year. It was historically bad. Do you think there's any chance that we could see them maybe make some noise, give the Mets and Braves some fits, or do you see them as like a 70 or 80 something win team that really is on the outside looking in come October?
I mean, so they hired Dave Dombrowski, which obviously you don't do, like, to send yourself into a rebuild. You can say what you want about him, but like, he's going to try to like do everything he can to like win that season, which he did. He re-signed Realmuto, which I think a lot of people expected him to walk after everything that like happened there. And then he addressed the bullpen. So I think like doing both those things was like a good start to like trying to like stay competitive, but it's just a really hard division. I think the rotation still outside of Nola and Wheeler is still very questionable as well. I believe they have a prospect, Spencer Howard, who people think would be good. I believe Spencer is his name. I know his last name's Howard. So we'll see what he does. But even outside, but then just outside of that, they don't have that great starters. I like the Archie Bradley pickup for their bullpen. I think it was a good pickup. But yeah, I just don't think that they're as good as the Mets and Braves. I think they'll finish somewhere between third and fourth, maybe even fifth, but probably not fifth, but somewhere between third and fourth.
Yeah, I agree.
I could definitely see that. I'm pretty sure Rob and I said this too. And we'll move on to the Central here. If the Phillies and Nationals were in the NL Central, we might be talking about them a lot differently, but they're just below what the Braves and the Mets are, who I think they're legitimate National League contenders. So we'll move to the Central. I think it's an interesting division in a lot of ways. I think that it has a mix of excitement and some really good players and some absolute shit shows. So we'll just start at the top. Who do you see winning that division? How many teams are going to compete for it? And how good do you think these teams are actually going to be?
So this is probably my hottest take when it comes to a division winner. I think most people have the Cardinals. Like, I think the NL East, for one, like pretty 50-50, Braves and Mets. This is probably my hottest take when it comes to a division winner. But I have the Brewers winning the NL Central over the Cardinals. So the Cardinals, they're definitely not a bad team. Obviously, they have Nolan Arenado now, so that's good. So that's obviously a really good pickup, really good trade. They didn't trade anything for him; they just paid his salary. So, but their rotation is still a little questionable. That obviously Jack Flaherty is a beast, but outside of that, they don't really have anyone reliable. They have a lot of like ground ball pitchers and stuff, which they have, which in years past they've gone by because they have an elite infield defense. But we'll see, and they still do. But we'll see how that works. And their lineup just is like we'll see what Dylan Carlson for one does. Like, he's really highly thought of as a prospect as well. But their lineup just outside of Goldschmidt and Arenado just doesn't really have it. Like, there's really like no like considerably above average hitter like that you can just point to and be like, that's an above average hitter in their lineup besides those two. Whereas with the Brewers, so you have Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns, which I think is a super underrated top two in the rotation. I think their ceiling is through the roof. Like, I think by the end of this year, they can both be like top 10 pitchers in the league. They still have Josh Hader and Devin Williams, which is still like the best 1-2 punch in the bullpen in the league. And their lineup, while not great, I think it gets a little overhated on. I think Christian Yelich is going to bounce back like to his normal self, like top 5 to 6 player self. And they have some interesting like platoon things, like interesting like platoons potentially. So I have the Brewers winning the NL Central. I know most people have the Cardinals. I personally have the Brewers winning the NL Central. The Cardinals finishing third. I have the Cardinals finishing second. I don't know why I said third. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm under the impression, I actually battle with this decision a lot because, Nick, you're right. The NL Central, I don't think this is the top heavy division. It's one of the more exciting divisions in the fact that I think it's going to be a lot more middled. I really like the Cardinals. I like the Brewers. Even like the Cubs, like they're rebuilding. Like, there is sort of an excitement around a rebuild because these guys got to go somewhere. So like whether or not you're not watching the Cubs to see if they're going to win games, or watching them where their star players are going to go. So like you're still watching the NL Central. Pirates are a dumpster fire. I don't whatever the hell. And the Reds are still an interesting team. They still have some good starting pitching. Eugenio Suarez is actually a really solid third baseman. Joey Votto, I'm sure, will find a way to hit 290 somehow. But I'm kind of on board with the Cardinals here in terms of the division. I really like Jack Flaherty. I don't think Wainwright he's someone that's kind of figured out how to age properly, kind of in the same way that CC did. His CC was more like with a slider. Wainwright is just, that curveball is just immortal. Whenever that decides to stop working. And I still like Carlos Martinez, and I like Alex Reyes and Jordan Hicks in their pen. I think that has potential to kind of be similar to Hader and Williams, just, in terms of a strength. And I don't know. I do think Nolan Arenado is primed for a really, really big season outside of Colorado. So I'm with the Cardinals on this one, but I mean, I love the Brewers. I think it's going to be a really tight race at the top.
I'm starting to wrestle with this decision more and more, because I think as soon as the Cardinals got Arenado, I'm pretty sure the number was like the entire division combined had spent like $4 million in free agency at the time of the Arenado trade. Like they were literally just refusing to try and win baseball games in 2021. So as soon as the Arenado trade happened, I was like, all right, the Cardinals are going for it. They're going to win the division. But the more I look at the Brewers, I really do like them. And I can't pick against the Cardinals because it's almost like on a test. Ethan knows he just took the SAT when like you bubble in one answer and you go back later and you think you might want to change it, but you're not sure. And you're going to feel like you'd rather be dumb and just get your original answer wrong than change it and have your original answer be right, but not get credit for it because you changed it, if that's making sense. So like, I'm going to stick with the Cardinals. At least going into the season, I think. But I really do like the Brewers a lot. I'm a huge Yelich guy. I think you're right. I think Woodruff and Burns is a pretty solid 1-2. Their bullpen is good. I think it's going to be a good division race between those two teams. I think the other three teams in the division who we'll pivot to next are going to be not as fun. So we'll leave the Pirates for last as like a little roast. So Ethan, what are your thoughts on the Cubs and the Reds on how their season is going to go?
All right, so the Reds, I'm really just not like I know like a lot of people like almost want them to be good because it was like I felt like they've tried to like force it, but now like you like for one, Trevor Bauer's gone, and you can say what you want about him, but like he gave him like Cy Young level production last year, and the rotation outside Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo is like I know I've said this about other teams. Like, but it's just like another just major question mark where they just don't have a reliable starter outside Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo. And considering that's supposed to be like their saving grace strength, that's definitely very concerning. And their lineup just like it just really blah. Like they have like Nick Castellanos is a good hitter, I guess, terrible fielder, but he's a good hitter, I guess. And they have Mike Moustakas, and then obviously they have Eugenio Suarez, who's a really good player, but still not like I wouldn't say like their lineup's far from like anything good. And their bullpen, the one guy in their bullpen I think is gonna have like a breakout year, like he's gonna be the next like reliever to come out of nowhere, is TJ Antoni. TJ Antoni. So if you look at like a lot of his peripheral, like he had a decent year last year, like very small sample size. Like he pitched like 15 games last year. I'm looking at his stats. He had a 2.08 ERA, 3.64 FIP, 3.69 Sierra. So like he had a solid year. But if you look at a lot of like his peripheral stuff, like he has some of like the highest like fastball velocity in the league. He struck out like a ton of batters. I think he could be someone who actually has a breakout year. Again, that's just a little bit of a tangent, going off on a tangent there. But I think so. I'm not high on the Reds, and the Cubs, like they're rebuilding, so they might be like all right on paper. Like I think their lineup's gonna bounce back this year. Like Brian and Baez aren't gonna have that bad of years again. But at the same time, they're rebuilding. Like I imagine that like there's probably a scenario where like if they're like 5 games out of the division at the deadline, that like they trade Hendricks and stuff. And as for the Pirates, I guess we'll save them to the end. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember like I don't even know who I want to address first. I remember the Reds. They were the quickest go for it team ever. Like they went for it with like Bauer and Gray for like it felt like, I mean, it was a shortened season too, but it felt like a half a season. They're like, oh, we'll go for it now. All right. And it was like, it's all season. Like they were planning to rebuild. Like it was the weirdest like period of time. And like, they were like, oh, we're going to trade Castellanos. Like they were like trying to move all of their offensive pieces. Like, I'm like, you guys are still kind of like decent. Like, why don't you try to like add in some way? They're like, nope, we're rebuilding. That was such a weird season for the Reds. And I feel like they're still now they're stuck in like this middle area where I don't know if they're good or bad. So I honestly just had to wait and see with them.
People were so high on the Reds for like no reason last year. And I shouldn't say no reason because Bauer, Sonny Gray, as much as I hate him, and Luis Castillo was a dirty top 3, but the whole team outside of that was just like so meh. Like I saw people like, I think the Reds last year are like the Blue Jays this year to me, where it's like, yes, there are things to like there. And yeah, they made them some sexy moves, which they got Bauer like the prior deadline. And I think they signed, was it Castellanos and Moustakas both coming into 2020?
Yeah.
So like not even all that sexy of moves. And everyone's just like, yeah, these are the guys. And it's just like, I don't think they're that good. So yeah, definitely low on the Reds and very low on the Cubs. They were my NL under 79.5 wins. I think they're going to be absolutely terrible. Their entire pitching staff outside of Kyle Hendricks is so barren now. And even best case scenario, like how good do they have to be to say, fuck it, we're going all in? Like, you really think you're beating the Dodgers or the Padres, Mets, Braves? Like, they're like what, the 7th or 8th best team in the National League, best case scenario. I'll say 5th or 6th best, absolute best case scenario. Like, they're going to trade Bryant. I wouldn't be shocked if they traded at least one of Baez, Rizzo, and Hendricks too. So I think even if those guys are good, you said it before, Rob, the thing to keep an eye on is whose stock is high enough that the Cubs are going to A, get a decent return, and B, where are those guys go into contenders? Like, is Chris Bryant going to be a Met on July 31st? Or is Kyle Hendricks going to be a Yankee or something? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the reason to watch the Cubs.
I think it's going to be funny because remember when the Giants accidentally got really hot towards the deadline? I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago. And I definitely wanted Madison Bumgarner at the time. But like a lot of Yankee fans wanted Madison Bumgarner. Like, oh, they're not going to trade him now. They got too good. I'm worried that the Cubs are going to do that exact situation. Like they're going to get too good, too close to the deadline, and then they're going to stink in the second half. So that's what I'm looking for. I want to see a team just absolutely blow a chance to rebuild.
Have the Cubs named a general manager? Like, I just picture them like going into Theo Epstein's empty office and asking questions to like his chair and like just pretending Theo would answer.
Theo, you there?
they did actually, I believe. Jed Hoyer, I believe is his name.
Jed Hoyer, that's
they
right.
did, yeah.
Yeah. No disrespect to the Hoyer family, but a little bit of disrespect to the Cubs organization in general. So, Ethan, the Pirates, I don't want to bore you. I feel bad I even have to ask. Thoughts?
I might not be as low as you are. I'm obviously not picking them to win the division or something, but like it wouldn't totally shock me if like we have a different outlook of them because like a year from now, because like because they have like a new GM and stuff, and like we'll see what happens with them, but like. They started to like actually at least try to rebuild. They have Brian Hayes, who's like really gonna be like a star, I think. So
that's my guy.
I wouldn't be put it this way. I would be surprised if they made any noise this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have a different outlook of them going forward than we do right now. Is what I'll say. But nor do I expect them to finish any higher than like. 4th, maybe they finish 4th, but probably last in the division.
I think if they finish 4th in the division, you throw a party in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You burn that place to the ground. That is the best season that they could hope for right now.
Dude, how wild is it that like baseball, which is like shit on by a lot of like mostly non-baseball fans as like not being big in pop culture, like you get like Instagram, like what is it? It's like Mike Trout has as many followers on Instagram as Kenneth Farid or so, like all that shit. And it's like a baseball player on the worst team in the league is dating Vanessa Hudgens. Like that just does not compute.
And it's not even a good baseball player. Like
I know, right?
No,
like a border
but like he's not even a good baseball player.
He seems like a cool dude. That's just like one thing that does it. Like if you just like in a nutshell looked at baseball and it's like, whoa, like an average player on the worst team in the league is dating like one of the most famous celebrities from like when like I was growing up. Like that's like sick, right? It's like, yeah, like that's like the one. Like that's like the one case of it. It's like A-Rod and J-Lo. Otherwise that's it. Like no one else cares.
Yeah.
But okay, that's honestly a hot take, Ethan, that I'm not going to be mocking the Pirates as much this time next year. So we'll see. I'll put the receipts on that one. But moving over to the West, trying to think how I want to phrase this because I think everyone knows that there's 2 teams clearly above the rest in that division. But at the same time, I think everyone also still knows that the Dodgers are the team to beat in that division as well as all of baseball. So what are your thoughts? Do you think there's any chance the Padres make a run for the division? How good do you see both of these teams being?
Yeah, so as you said, the Dodgers clear favorite. Like they're just no weaknesses whatsoever. Like I guess you can kind of point to like their bullpen, but like not really. Like they just have like a bunch of solid arms. They don't really. I guess like what I'm saying is like they don't have like any like top 15 reliever in the league kind of person, but they still have just a lot of solid arms in their bullpen. Their lineup absolutely just no flaws in their lineup and their rotation. Kershaw, Bauer, Bueller, not in that order necessarily. And then they have David Price coming back. They have Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, a bunch of other prospects.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
They're just stacked, for lack of a better term. And the Padres are stacked as well. There's been some injury stuff with Tatis, but I think he'll be fine. Like they said that like he like left the spring training game, but they said it'll be fine. And their rotations obviously also stacked, arguably better than the Dodgers in some aspects, and their bullpen is probably better than the Dodgers, but their lineup just isn't as good as the Dodgers. Like not like their lineup's obviously stacked, just isn't as close to as the Dodgers. The Dodgers are the clear favorite in the division, even though the Padres are really good.
Yeah. Ethan, that's a great point because I feel like a lot of people are kind of grouping because I do think, I mean, as much as big Yankee fans as we are, I do think that the Padres are the second best team in baseball. But the thing is, there's still a gap between the Padres and the Dodgers. As much as everyone wants to group them because they're kind of in the NL, they're in the same division. You know, you kind of want to pair them together and be like, oh, they're the best two teams in baseball. There's a gap between the Padres and the Dodgers. And Padres are awesome. It's significant. I do think that the Dodgers are just one of the more unbeatable rosters that like we've seen on paper, like in a really long time. I feel like since like the Yankees dynasty that like I've been like, how do you beat this team? Like where is the hole? Where do they really find a fault? And it's like, yeah, you could point to the bullpen, but they have 15 starters that, you know, I would love to have on the Yankees. So those guys are going to find some time in the bullpen too. So I think that there's a clear gap between that Dodgers and Padres, you know, area.
Yeah, I think the impressive thing, you started listing off names, Ethan. You could go like 6, 7, 8 names deep for both the Padres and the Dodgers, who are either proven successful major league pitchers, like number 1, number 2 caliber types, like a Bueller, a Snell, a Darvish, a Kershaw, a Bauer, Dinelson Lamet, like all these guys who have done it at the big league level. And then it's like, yeah, and the Dodgers have like Dustin May and Gonsolin, and the Padres have Musgrove and Mackenzie Gore. Like the depth is just absolutely disgusting in both those rotations. I honestly think we're going to see a situation play out very similar to the AL East in 2018, where the Padres might win 98, 99, even 100 games, and the Dodgers just still win the division by like 6 games, to win like 106 to 110 games. Like I think both those teams are that good, that deep, and no one else in this division is going to come even close to touching them.
Yeah, I agree totally.
So what are your thoughts on the Giants, Diamondbacks, and Rockies? Just because I don't even need to give them all their own individual segments. I think those teams are all kind of in no man's land where they're stuck in a division with these two juggernauts who look to compete for the next 5-10 years, honestly, at this point, the way they're constructed. So where do they go from here? Do you think any of them will be any good at all? Or what's your thoughts on those teams?
I think the Giants will probably finish around 500. And then the Diamondbacks probably a little below 500. And then the Rockies are just, they're just not good at all. Complete mess with ownership and management. You know, that they trade Arenado, but now they want to extend Story. Like, just makes no sense whatsoever. And yeah, I think the Giants, I think they're like hanging in there. I guess you can say like they're initiating a somewhat successful like rebuild, and I think they'll be like 500 this year. And the Diamondbacks, like I think like they'll probably start to rebuild a little bit in the near future. Obviously, like the Mad Bum signing like hasn't worked out by any means, so I think they'll start to like rebuild in the future. And the Rockies are just like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the worst team in the league, especially because they have to play the Dodgers and Padres so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ethan, I'm curious in your thoughts because I mean, I agree entirely. I don't even want to double down on that. It did the bottom of the NL West is a joke. What do you are you I'm assuming, but like are you in favor of like the universal DH? Because like I mean, we've done like the AL videos, the NL videos, and that's like obviously like the main difference between these two leagues. Like obviously it has an effect on like how these teams play. Like what are your thoughts on like the universal DH? Like are you a fan? Are you not?
Yeah, I'm a fan, and I understand that like it takes time to like institute things, but like it's so like inevitable at this point. Like just yesterday, we're on the topic of the Diamondbacks. Zach Gallen, one of their better starters, got hurt. Like I forget what. I don't know if he was like swinging or like rattling
his shoulder or something.
Yeah, but he got hurt like just a few days ago from like swinging, and like it's just time. Like no people like no more like people like always make fun of like that about like how like baseball fans are like, oh, you just don't understand. You it's not boring. You just don't understand it. Like it's time that we just throw out the strategy of pitchers hitting. Just get a universal DH. It's inevitable. It'll keep players healthy. It'll lengthen players' career. Like for example, like there's the whole Edwin Encarnacion thing where like he wants a job, but like no, but like teams don't want to like rely on him to be the DH because he's had a bad year. And then like, but if there was a universal DH, he'd have a job. Then like the Yankees, for example, we have Jay Bruce. Like he wouldn't have to like take a minor league deal to like try to like force his way onto a roster if there was a universal DH. Probably it's just inevitable. It'll lengthen players' careers. It'll give more players jobs. It's just I think it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, as an AL fan, I'm not that vocal about it, but I do think it's stupid when you hear like, oh, I need the strategy, or oh, it's fun when pitchers hit home runs. Like, yeah, Bartolo Colon hit one home run, and you'd rather see that guy who's going to get out 999 times, or whatever it is, out of 1,000 over a seasoned hitter like Edwin Encarnacion. So I think it's crazy. And the one caveat I do have as a Yankee fan is I do care because we've seen it affect our pitchers. We've seen Shin-Ming Wong's career essentially get ruined running the bases. Tanaka tore both hamstrings running the bases. So I don't talk too much on the DH, but I think it is ridiculous that we still don't have a universal DH. So Ethan, we'll start to wrap it up. Just want to get your Cy Young pick, your MVP pick, and then we'll talk about your playoff picture. So who you have winning the divisions and the wild card. So we'll start with the awards. Who's your Cy Young? Who's your MVP?
All right. So Cy Young, I'll say DeGrom to be basic, but if I had to go with a dark horse pick, I'll say Corbin Burns, who I talked about earlier. MVP, again, it's tough. I'll say Betts, I guess, but if I had to go with I can't even think of a dark horse pick, but and then you said rookie of the year.
No, I mean you can.
Yeah, well, I don't know if
you got him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you said it, but I'll say Brian Hayes, who I talked about earlier.
I love that.
I believe he's still eligible. And then division winners. So I'll say the Mets, the Brewers, and the Dodgers, with the Braves and Padres getting the other two wild card spots.
How do you see the playoffs shaking out then?
So I'll say the Mets end up winning the wild card game because they have DeGrom. As long as he's healthy, you have a very good shot of winning a 1-game series.
Wait, you have the Mets winning the division though? I'm pretty sure.
That's right. So I'll say the Padres win the wild card game in that case because like whoever they throw out there, whether it's Darvish or Snell, I think it will be better than whoever the Braves throw out there, and I think that they're just the better team. So again, it's a 1-game series, hard to predict. And then I'll just say the Dodgers end up going to the World Series. I know it's basic, but like just they're just so good. So as long as they stay healthy, like obviously things can happen, but they're just so good.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. Sometimes the best pick is the cop-out pick.
Oh, I know that.
All right, Ethan, I appreciate it. You managed to lift my spirits on the Pittsburgh Pirates a little bit, which I didn't think was possible. So thank you for that, I guess. Always appreciate the insight, buddy. Go follow him at NY Sports Fan Kush. You got anything else you wanna plug, Ethan?
Not really. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Knicks trade deadline instant reaction.
I think that we actually did an all right job staying pat because like just wasn't really any move that like I really felt needed to be made. Like maybe I would have matched the Victor Oladipo trade, but he wanted to go to Miami anyways, and he's been bad this year. So like I think it was worth a shot for them. But I think staying pat was honestly totally fine move. We got a 2nd round pick for Austin Rivers, so that we weren't using him, so like it's good. So
Love that.
I'm glad with the trade deadline that we didn't do anything stupid for one.
A lot of optimism. Love it. Ethan, thanks again for joining us. Everyone go follow him on Twitter. Everyone click the subscribe button. Baseball coming up in a couple days, everyone. So thanks for watching.